I had been to a voter registration workshop, they were just training and teaching us how to register to pass the literacy test. And it was giving us enough training that we could tell other people, how to pass the literacy test. We finished the workshop, and then we got the Continental Trailway bus to come back to Mississippi. And we got to Winona, Mississippi, I would say about 10:30 that Sunday morning. And 4 people got off of the bus, to use the restaurant to get food. And 2 people got off to use the washroom while I was still on the bus. When I looked through the glass, I saw the people rush out. And I stepped off to see what had happened. And Miss Ponder told me that it was a state highway patrolman and a chief of police on the inside, and began to tap them on the shoulders with billy clubs and ordered them to get out. And I said, well, this is Mississippi. I saw them when they began to put the 5 people, what was, off the bus, began to put them in the highway patrolman's car. And she said, get back on the bus, Miss Hamer. And then I heard somebody scream from the car that she was in and said, get that one there. And then a white man stepped out of a car and told me I was under arrest. And when he opened the door and I went to get in the car, he kicked me. And they carried me on down to the county jail. Then when I walked in with the 2 white men that had carried me down, and they cursed me all the way down, they would ask me questions, and when I would try to answer, they would tell me to hush. And I was put in a cell with Miss Evesta Simpson. And after I was put in this cell, I could just hear some horrible screams, and I would hear somebody when they say, can't you say yes, sir, nigger? Can't you say yes, sir? And they would call her names that I wouldn't want to go on tape. And she said, yes, I can say yes, sir. So I said. And she said, I don't know you well enough. And I would hear when she would hit the floor again. And finally, she began to pray. And she asked God to have mercy on these people because they didn't know what they was doing. And after a while, they passed my cell door with this young woman, Miss Annelle Ponder. And one of her eyes looked like blood, and her hair was standing up on her head, and her clothes had been torn. And then 3 white men came to my cell, and one of them was a state highway patrolman, and he asked me where I was from, and I told him I was from Rouville, and I guess he called Rouville. And they didn't like me in Rouville because I worked with voter registration there. And when he came back, he said, you damn right. They said, you're from Rouville, all right. And we gonna make you wish you was dead.